vaccines, and in particular our sovereign capability to produce these in response to this current and any future global pandemics, has been a topic of conversation for the past few months. And today you will hear about the start of that process here in Victoria. Project Banksia will provide extensive opportunities for subcontractors and product suppliers alike during the construction of this new facility. And the purpose of this webinar is to provide you with a pathway to connecting to B6 Watpac, who are the contractor for the project. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Bradley, and I'm the Manager of Industry Engagement with ICN Victoria. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar this morning. I would like to start today's proceedings by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are all meeting and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are with us this morning. During this morning's webinar, you will hear from Jonah Smith from Securus, Jason R. Sam from B6 Watpac. Jason will be followed by Brian Finnegan from ICN on social procurement. I will then provide a quick update on ICN activities, which will be followed by a Q&A session with all of the presenters. For the live Q&A session, please submit your questions via the raised hand icon on the platform. These can be submitted at any time throughout the session. Also, please note any questions that are not answered live will be responded to at a later date. If you do experience any technical difficulties during the session, please call 1-800-733-416 and the operator will sort those out for you. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar, and I would now like to introduce Jonah Smith, Securus Executive Director for Project Banksia.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the industry briefing for Project Banksia. My name is Jonah Smith. I'm the Project Director for Securus and responsible for delivering this new greenfield facility to support the supply of pandemic and seasonal cell-based influenza vaccines. I'll give you a bit of an overview of the project from the company's perspective, and then I'll hand over to Jason R. Sam from Watpac, our construction management firm, who will talk more about specifics of the construction needs for this project. In the end of last year, we signed a long-term agreement with the Australian government to provide onshore pandemic influenza vaccine protection and also supply seasonal influenza vaccines into the future. To underpin this commitment, we are building a new facility, and this will provide the largest biotech manufacturing facility investment to date by Securus. It is one of the largest pharmaceutical investments in Australia to date, and very exciting part of the growth of the CSL business and our commitment to public health. This site will be an important addition to the global influenza network we have, and we will be replicating the process we use in our current cell culture facility in Holly Springs in North Carolina in the US. We will be supplying vaccine from 2026, and this will give the pandemic protection required for the Australian public and an annual production of the seasonal vaccine for Southern Hemisphere. This will be supporting a very large supply chain annually, over $300 million, and a very important part of the Victorian economy and Australian economy. We have chosen a greenfield site in Tullamarine, and we've looked very carefully at where the facility should be based. It's just over 14 hectares, and we have starting construction this year. The facility needs to be operational by 2026, so we've got around a 2 to 3 year construction program. We then need to qualify the facilities and submit our registration packages to the relevant authorities, such as the TGA here in Australia, FDA in the US, and that's a very important part. This facility will be playing a key role in the global pharmaceutical industry. So it's an important project, and we are at the stage where it's important to start to engage with potential suppliers. And today we're talking specifically about how we can support the construction and fit out installation of this facility. So on that note, I will stop and hand over to Jason. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jason R. Sam. I'm the Project Director for B6 Watpac. for the project Banksia for Securus. B6 Wattpac has been appointed as construction manager by Securus for the Banksia project. B6 Wattpac will be responsible for trade and supplier procurement, construction supervision, and leading through to commissioning of a finished and operational facility. This morning, as part of the ICN presentation, I would like to take you through the trade and supplier procurement process that will be in place for Project Banksia. We envisage that it will be a two-stage process and in fact have started with many of the early works trades already. The two-stage process will include an expression of interest and pre-qualification process, leading into a request for tender process. To explain those two processes a little, the expression of interest process is a fairly prescriptive and simple process. Please follow the expression of interest document and address all of the questions that are raised in the document. There is no need for fancy proposals or excessive graphics. That is not necessary, nor is it sought. What we are looking for is a fully completed document with all of the information included as requested. The more complete the document is, the easier it is to assess and the more opportunity for the supplier or person submitting the expression of interest to be pre-qualified and included on the request for tender process. With the request for tender process, we envisage that all subcontract and supplier packages will be firm lump sum packages wherever that is possible. In some instances, and depending upon the level of design documentation available at the time, we may depart from that particular contract model and entertain something else that is more suitable. But at this stage, please accept that it will be firm lump sum. The form of subcontract and supplier agreement will be the standard Wattpac subcontract and supplier agreements for minor and major works. Please, when you're submitting your request for tender, be very clear with inclusions and exclusions. The more detailed your tender is in terms of scope inclusions, exclusions, the simpler it is to assess and the less time it will take to reach a position where we are actually speaking to a supplier or subcontractor about a contract. The trade packages that we have looked at so far include the early works packages, so mainly bulk earthworks, which that has already been awarded and is currently underway. Some of the site infrastructure procurement has commenced around sewer and stormwater, and some site set-up packages have been awarded, such as the preliminary site offices, first aid supplies and the likes. There are many more packages to come in this particular area as the site compound is not in its full form as yet. The next group of trades that we'll be focused on are around structure and building envelope. The FCC building that Jonah has spoken about earlier will be a concrete structure with structural steel framed roof level. We expect secondary steel around the perimeter of the building to support insulated cladding panel facade and roofing. There will be some curtain wall facade to the office and admin building, and we expect a substantial precast panel contract as well as structural steel. Building services, as you would expect for a project of this scale and complexity, will be across all aspects of building services. There will be large mechanical and electrical packages, and it's important to note that high voltage electrical incoming mains will be undertaken directly by APAM, as they will remain an APAM asset. The internal fit-out packages that will be required are consistent with a project of this type. There'll be large insulated panel clean room packages and large resilient flooring packages, as well as many other smaller packages that would be included typically in a pharmaceutical clean room style project. In respect to timing, as mentioned previously, early works is currently underway and in process now. Building structure and envelope expression of interest process is starting now, and the building services expression of interest process will start in the coming weeks. We expect internal fit out and the balance of the main supply and trade packages to be commenced within the next 6 to 8 weeks. In terms of request for tender, the short-term forecast for packages that are being prepared and probably will go to market in the immediacy are craneage and hoists, concrete structure and structural steel. As more design becomes available to us, we will prepare and put more packages to market, particularly around building services and the early long lead time fit out trades. We hope this information has been of value to you, and we remain available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason, for that overview on the project and some of the work packages that you see being released to the market shortly. I would now like to introduce Brian Finnegan, who is a Senior Social Procurement Advisor for ICN Victoria.
Good morning, and thank you, Andrew, for that introduction. Yes, I'm the Senior Social Procurement Advisor for ICN Victoria. The Social Procurement Framework, which is a Victorian state government policy, was launched in 2018, and it was looking to use its significant procurement power to support Victorian-based socially and financially disadvantaged communities through either direct employment opportunities or indirectly by supporting social purpose enterprises or Aboriginal businesses. Its main aim is to be able to use its purse strings to encourage the adoption of fair, inclusive and sustainable business practices. The main aim of it sits under 10 objectives, which is about assisting with direct and indirect employment opportunities for Aboriginal people, for people with a disability and other disadvantaged groups, but it also has objectives around equality, gender equality, and also sustainability and environmental targets as well. Why is it important to you? As part of the Banksia project, the main head contractors will be asking you to be able to actually provide evidence or an understanding of where your social procurement strategy fits in and how you're able to match some of these objectives as well. So it's important because government tenders and projects are looking for social procurement value as a point of difference. So whereas 2 years ago, it's really been confined to the big builds, the major infrastructure projects across Victoria. It is now being adopted and adapted by every state agency and government department in Victoria. So at some stage, when you are bidding for work that is related to state government tenders, you will be asked to be able to provide evidence or an understanding of how you're going to fulfill these objectives as well. It's a good opportunity to assist diversifying the supply chains and increasing competition as well. And its ability is in the fact that we're with the local jobs first, which identifies and encourages local content. It promotes social responsible business practices. So in a nutshell, how can we assist at ICN? So my role is to be able to provide advice to agencies, to head contractors and subcontracted supply chains on how to review your social procurement strategy. And many of you or many businesses kind of scratch their head to know where to start in this space. But I think the first thing to say about that is a lot of businesses that I've been dealing with, particularly SMEs, are already having good practice in this space already without them really realizing it. So I'm here as an additional resource along with the social procurement team at ICN to provide that advice and assist you with the tender documentation and also how potentially to deliver outcomes and deliverables. My role will also be able to help you understand your social and sustainability capacity, and we do have tools and measurements for that to be able to assist you as well, allowing myself and colleagues to be able to facilitate opportunities for competitive social and sustainable suppliers. So working with you to be able to identify social purpose, social enterprise, Aboriginal businesses that you may be able to get in contact to be able to start this ball rolling if you haven't already. And most importantly, because as part of these tender documentations, when you are awarded subcontractors, you will be asked to measure those outcomes as well. So we do have some pretty handy measuring tools to be able to actually assist you with that, and we can walk you through that as well. That's it in a nutshell. Please feel free to contact me. My details will be up on the screen, and start a dialogue or continue a dialogue as well, and look forward to talking with you soon. Take care, and I'll pass you back to Andrew.
Thank you, Brian, and I encourage anyone who is looking for more assistance in the social and sustainable space to get in contact with Brian at some point in the future. As you'll have noticed, with the magic of the internet and video, I've changed locations to present the last part of this webinar. The slides that follow will cover ICN's credentials, our industry engagement initiatives, and how you can connect to B6 WattPack through ICN Gateway and our industry advisor for this project, John Sands. ICN Victoria has been working for local industry since 1984, founded on the noble principle that local SMEs should be given full and fair opportunities to compete for work on major projects. The numbers presented here for the last financial year are a great visual presentation of the Victorian Big Build and the commitment to local participation. Storytelling is part of what we do, and the best stories are told from the vantage point of experience, passion, knowledge, and expertise. Our experienced team delights in supporting and connecting local industry, being champions of local capability and inclusion and assisting with the project procurement process. We elevate the great stories of Victorian resilience, manufacturing, innovation, infrastructure, and social and sustainable outcomes through various digital channels, briefings like this one, site visits, and much more. Complementing this work are our systems, and at any one time, ICN Gateway, which is our supplier and project database, has approximately 19,000 registered businesses in Victoria and some $400 billion worth of projects listed nationally. We're proud of our work in that it makes a difference by stimulating employment and local engagement in Victoria and Australia. Whilst this project does not fall under the Victorian Local Jobs First policy, as the state is not doing the procurement, ICN is about creating local jobs and opportunities for Victorian businesses and workers whilst achieving value for money. The statistics from the Local Jobs First annual report show how effective ICN has been in this space. Our role in connecting industry to opportunities could not be more important as Australia recovers from the effects of COVID-19 and the desire for sovereign capability that has never been stronger, as borne out by this particular project. We've enjoyed getting out and about in the high vis this year and meeting up with industry. It's fair to say that our industry advisors were champing at the bit once restrictions were eased, although that has been tempered somewhat over the last couple of weeks. But here are some happy snaps from recent industry visits in Ballarat, Gippsland, as well as some events in Geelong and Seymour. Our team of 10 highly skilled and motivated industry advisors situated across the state are passionate advocates for local industry. And it is this passion and knowledge that underpins our initiatives to connect and provide local solutions. As mentioned previously, ICN Gateway is our national opportunities portal. It is where you can find information on Project Banksia and where you can submit an expression of interest to B6 WattPack. The unique URL shown on the screen will take you directly to the ICN Gateway page for Project Banksia. You will need to be registered with us to submit an EOI, and a basic registration is free. If you are already registered, that's fantastic. Please ensure that your company profile is up to date, including all the relevant contact details as well as your capability. Please also ensure that you have the email notification options ticked on, and that will enable you to receive all relevant communications about this project and others. Our friendly client services team, headlined by Tiana Gibson, are happy to help you with any ICN Gateway questions that you may have. John Sands is the allocated industry advisor for this project, and he will be happy to chat to you about connecting with the project team. Also listed here are the contact details for both Tiana and Brian as well. Just before we head into the Q&A session, I have been advised that there will be a slight delay of maybe a day or two in getting the ICN Gateway page up and running fully. So our apologies for that. However, if you do have the email alerts ticked on your Gateway profile, you will receive a notification about that overnight. So keep an eye out on your inbox. We've got about 2 or 3 questions come in so far. Again, a reminder, if you do have a question, to do that through the raised hand icon on the platform, and we'll get to those questions and hopefully get you an answer. First question is to Jason. Jason, is prefabrication a focus on delivering this project? And if so, does that include the prefabrication of building services? That's a question from Neil.
Certainly, thanks, Andrew. We will use as much prefabrication as is practical and efficient to use on the project, and most definitely building services, so pipe racks, service risers, things like that. We will use prefabricated techniques.
Sorry, a question for Jonah. A curious question really was, how did the name Project Banksia come about?
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, good question. So look, Banksia plants are Australian native wildflowers, and many people will recognise them by their characteristic flower spikes and fruiting cones. And it's really, that is similar to the structure of a flu virus. So this project is really about the next generation of influenza manufacturing, and based here in Melbourne, Australia. So we'll be moving from current egg-based vaccine manufacturing to cell-based vaccine, and this will be the only cell culture flu vaccine facility in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's really symbolic of new life and regenerating quickly from seed. So that's the basis of it.
Great. Thanks for the background on that. Question for Jason. Is there a rough timeline on when the laboratory equipment procurement process will begin?
Yeah, we would expect that will be in the first quarter of 2022 that we'd be looking at those parts of the project, Andrew.
Terrific. And as we're speaking, we're getting a few more questions coming in. I think they're all going to be for you, Jason, so we'll keep those going. And they're looking, this one's specifically around a company looking to do an expression of interest on specialist engineering design services. So this particular company specialises in fibre reinforced concrete slab design. So I'm not quite sure how far you've got down the track in design, but any opportunities in that area?
The design part of it's probably a question more for Jonah rather than myself, but my sense would be that maybe a little too late.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the design process, we're in design right now, and we have very early construction works on site. In terms of constructability, we're still making some decisions on that with the final building makeup for the site. So that should be locked down by the end of this year.
Terrific. And do you have any architects confirmed for internal fit outs, or would it be the same architects for the whole building? Not sure if you're able to let the audience know who those companies or company is.
So we don't have architects confirmed for all scope. We will have a mixture of GMP manufacturing facilities and some more typical commercial construction and administration and laboratory areas. So that's still to come.
Sure. Okay, just going through a couple of extra ones here. One around, again, I think Jason and maybe Jonah as well, but around social procurements or social enterprises. What are the specific targets, if any, based on the project value for Indigenous employment disadvantage or disability cohorts? So I'm not sure if you've got any specific targets on those, but if not, maybe some ideas of plans of how those cohorts could get involved.
Yes, certainly, Andrew. There are no specific targets that have been placed on the project through funding. However, B6 WATPAC has internal targets that we are working to at the moment around that. So our corporate policy looks at a target of 2% for Indigenous participation on all of our projects across Australia. We've been working with local organisations now for probably about 3 or 4 months to put some local Indigenous-owned business procurement opportunities in place. Certainly through ICN, it will open up more information to other organisations interested to get involved.
Terrific, thank you. Some good opportunities, I'm sure, coming through to the project. A couple here, again, Jason, particularly around steel. And I'm not sure if you got the answer to this one, but maybe we can get those later on. But do you have any confirmed or an idea of the tonnage of steel required? And will that be sourced locally? So presumably locally manufactured steel. And also any steel fabrication works like pressure vessels and steel tanks as well.
I'll start with pressure vessels and steel tanks. Most definitely will be elements of that type of steel fabrication within the project, particularly tanks and vessels. Structural steel for building elements, we will be going to local steel fabricators within Australia and definitely trying to source as much product from the Australian market as possible. In terms of a tonnage, off the top of my head, given revised design and work that we're going through at the moment, I'd suggest it's going to be somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 tonnes of steel.
Terrific. It's a fair bit to get from the local market, which will be fantastic. Question for Jonah. Actually, a couple here. I think there's a lot of interest in mRNA production facilities. Will this be integrated into Banksia? And I guess a similar question around that, is the manufacturing process going to be a replication of Holly Springs, or will it be based around single-use technology?
Yeah, both good questions. I'll take the second one first. So the manufacturing process will be based on the cell culture process employed in our plant in Holly Springs in North Carolina. Now, there will be some subtle changes to the process that we'll employ, and some of that will involve either increased use of single-use technology. Interestingly, some of our parts of the process we will be converting from single-use technology to fixed vessel centralised supply, for example, with buffers that we use in our process. So there will be some subtle changes there. In terms of mRNA, it's very topical. The government's very interested in finding a partner for manufacturing of mRNA vaccines, and CSL and Seqirus are seriously considering this and looking into what offering we might be able to provide for the government. There's no scope currently to include that in Banksia.
Okay, thank you for that. Question back to Jason in terms of lighting. Any ideas where the lighting design may be at this stage in the process?
I'd suggest it's not yet commenced. We're way too early for that level of detail.
Okay, terrific. Sorry, just scrolling through what we've got here. Again, a couple of Jason here. Will safety management and training be sought by B6 Watpac, or is that going to be left to contractors themselves to procure? And is there going to be a dedicated ISO 5001 energy management system? And who are the electrical engineers on the project? Sorry, there's about 3 questions there, so apologies for that.
That's okay. In terms of safety management and training, certainly B6 Watpac will be providing the safety management for the overall project through the construction phase. Training, there will be some training that will be provided as part of that on site, but ultimately it's the responsibility of each employer, so each subcontractor, to ensure their people are appropriately trained, and it's fairly industry standard. And then the final question around energy management. Thus far, there's been nothing talked about with that particular standard. However, that's not to say that it may or may not come into the project as the project progresses.
Pardon me.
Sure. Again, we're getting a couple of questions around design in specific areas of the project. So I'm not sure if you've got that level of detail yet, but maybe there's a way that we can provide some further information on that back through Gateway when we've got that up and running in the next day or two, if we've got that information. But progressively, as that information comes to hand, hopefully we can get that into the public domain. That would be fantastic. Gives people an idea then to where to go. Just going through some other bits and pieces here. Is there any water treatment capacity being added as part of the project?
Yes, there is.
Probably Jason, yep.
Yes, most definitely, Andrew. So there's infectious, non-infectious waste that the facility generates, which is required to be treated before it's discharged to sewage.
Sure. Again, we're getting into some detail-y bits here, which I'm not sure that you may have the answer for at this stage, but in terms of sanitary hardware, washroom fittings, will there be a requirement for sensor or touch-free units there?
Yes, there will, but it's that sort of detail will come out much later in the design process.
Sure. Yep. No, that's fine. Not sure questions just cropped up here. Back to Jonah. I think we've answered this one though, but will the facility include alternative manufacturing lines for different technologies or vaccines, or is it just going to be limited to cell-based influenza?
Yeah, I think the answer is that in the first instance, it will be limited to cell-based influenza. We do think the site, the Tullamarine, can give us a good platform for expanding manufacturing in the future to other technologies, which could include mRNA, for example. But at this stage, it's focused on the cell culture influenza manufacturing.
Sure, no, that's fine. Just going through. We've done that one. Again, specifically, this is probably going to be a question to redirect to potential designer or engineering there, but company here is a valve manufacturer specialising in cryogenic valves that's manufacturing here in Melbourne. So would that be a separate package, or would we be connecting that particular business through to somebody that's going to do the design and then the fit out?
Suggest it's likely to, it will be both actually. There will be some valves that will be purchased separately. The valves will be purchased as part of process equipment installation and various packages around that.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Again, one for Jason. Is there an opportunity to discuss a cloud-based Q&A or QC system that subcontractors and certifiers can use in terms of handovers and inspections? Not sure if that's something you guys already do, or you may want to look at that.
Yeah, quite mature in that space, Andrew. We are already well down the path with selection of potential vendors to use a cloud-based QA system. That request for proposal was at market some many months ago now, and yeah, that probably a little late.
Sure. Would that be the same for foundation piling? Is that underway, or
haven't commenced on foundation procurement or piling contractor procurement yet?
Sure. Okay. Terrific. Look, I think we've got through most of the questions there. If we do get some others in between now and the end of the webinar, we'll certainly get those answers to you, and we'll post those on ICN Gateway in the next few days. So hopefully, to those that have asked a question, they've got the answers they're looking for and some further direction. But I say we will get some further questions answered and posted later on. So look, that really concludes the webinar for today. Just like to thank the ICN team for putting this together, in particular Jacob, doing a lot of work in the background, John, Brian and Kate, and also to really give a big thanks to our presenters, Jonah and Jason, for giving up your time to get this underway. So thanks everybody for joining us on the webinar this morning, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe. Thank you.